So let's start going into prioritizing tasks. By a show of hands, who here might have a hard time sometimes understanding what to do now, what to do later, and what has to just stop and do it now? Okay, perfect. So really, let's go through this, because what we created was a CSC productivity system. And it has, as you guys can see, I like to work in triangles. So the first part of the triangle is understanding your tasks. Now, once you deem something as important, right, the challenge is everything feels important because it has to do with someone's buying or selling a home. There's no details, small or large. The first part that you need to understand in prioritizing any tasks is, number one, what are you telling your clients during the meetings? Right. And people are like, wait, how does that have anything to do with productivity? It's really simple. There's a great phrase that says, how it starts is how it goes. And if you're not outlining clear and explicit communication for your clients, that's where all these phone calls and unplanned emails and text messages come in. Now, think about working with a contractor. What happens then? You don't know where they are in the project. You don't know where they're starting. You don't know where they're stopping. And you're always like, hey, are you coming here on Saturday? Well, if your clients don't know what's coming next, when you're communicating with them, what happens when you find a new property, how do you review showings? How do you share the results of your marketing? How do you share the market update? What are they going to do? They're going to call and email and then text you, right? Remember, our brain looks for certainty and comfort. Well, not knowing what's going on is uncertain and uncomfortable. And that's where all this stuff starts, right? So, you can either treat the symptom or cure the cause. So we'll start with curing the cause. Then after that, let's move on to the next step in the conveyor belt. Once you deem something is important, there are three essential different buckets here. There's important, there's urgent, and urgent important, right? So if you look at simplicity, something's important, it's something that has to get done, but doesn't have like a very specified time deadline. An example would be like if you had to review a marketing piece, right? Is that really something that's like urgent or something that has to just stop everything right away? No, it doesn't, right? Because generally speaking, if you plan ahead, it should have space, right? But it has to get done and there's no specific deadline. Then you get to urgent. It's something that has to be done, but there's a deadline associated with it. And things that are urgent generally should be done by the end of the day, right? So an example is if there's a highest and best tomorrow at 5 p.m., is that something that you have to stop everything you're doing today if your client wants to talk and you're in the middle of a time block? No, because the deadline isn't like right now. And that brings me to the next box, urgent, important. Now, this is something that is time sensitive and that if you don't do it in the time, there's a negative consequence. So, those listing agents that'll send you messages like, hey, highest and best is in like the next 2 hours. At that point, does it make sense to drop what you're doing? Because if you don't get to it in a specified period of time, that there will be a consequence? Absolutely. You know how many times I've been on calls and I've been places and I'm like, oh my God, my seller's calling. Well, that's great. But the last time I checked, you signed a listing contract and can't just cancel on you because you're not on demand. So the whole point of this is going from playing defense and being reactive to offense and being proactive, right? So give me a thumbs up if we kind of are where good. So when you start thinking about this, the first thing that you really want to do is start looking at where is it that you stop everything you're doing. Now, a lot of this has to do with our own impulse control. Our own impulse control, right? We have to effectively be able to look at our phone when it pings, dings, rings, calls, emails, text messages, and learn to let it go. Because if you're not willing to let things go to execute a plan, you're not going to be able to grow. It's why businesses have more of the same and run in this cyclical thing that your business growth is depending on the market. The market should not influence your business growth. What you do is in direct control of that. Now, as you're doing that, the next step is the 10-minute business plan, right? And we created this 10-minute business plan years ago. And I actually made this when I was an agent because I had to figure out a way of knowing really what I did every day. And I wanted to know how I could get better. Because if you think about it, everything in your brain is like, picture your brain and your mind like a big ocean. And these small things are like pebbles or rocks. Finding a rock in an ocean is really hard. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll never find it. So I created the 10-minute business plan for a way to make sure that people's businesses continue growing, that they're able to effectively see where they're falling short, and how to proactively on a day-to-day basis improve their performance. So the first part about the 10-minute business plan is income producing activities, right? And income producing activities really are the key driver to any business. What you do today, there's a future self of you 3 months from now that's literally depending on you, right? So if you've ever not had money for a month, you go back and look 3 or 4 months and the proof's in the pudding. It's what you did during that time. Now, when we start thinking about income producing activities, people are very, very confused as to what those are. Oh, I went on a listing appointment. That doesn't count. I was setting up collections for my client. That doesn't count, right? Like these things don't count. A true income producing activity is the purposeful action of creating business that does not exist today, right? It's the purposeful action of creating business that doesn't exist today. Reaching out to your sphere, writing handwritten note cards, reaching out to agents, right? Like those are proactive things that will continue to build your business. Does that make sense to everybody? The second one is what distractions got in the way. I think to me, this is the most valuable one because, you know, many people sit there with this massive to-do list. You start the day, you're super excited. You're like, I'm going to get all these things done. And then by the end of the day, you're sitting there with your list. You want to go home. You either have a family, kids, a partner, a spouse, a hobby, a life, something you want to do besides work. And now you're sitting there looking at the list. And then at that moment, the next thing becomes like, oh man, I wish, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I should have done this. I shouldn't have answered that call. I shouldn't have gone on Instagram and got so distracted, right? In that present moment, at the end of the day, there'll never be a better time for you to understand where the distractions are. So the first thing is income producing activities. The second part is what distractions got in the way. And the third part is a really simple question. What will I do differently tomorrow? And literally at the end of the day, it's very simple to say the shoulda, the woulda, the coulda, right? So how does this essentially work? We want you to take 10 minutes at the end of every day. And I'm suggesting this as a must for everybody. And at the end of every day, you just want to ask yourself a simple question. What income producing activities did I complete today? What distractions got in the way? And what will I change tomorrow? Now, let me show you how psychology works. It's like, if you understand behavioral psychology, you can understand how to influence your behavior. Now, the next day comes, Corey, and we're going to start working, and I'm going to look and read my sheet. If I have no income producing activities, what is my brain going to trigger me to do? Start doing something that makes me money, right? The next thing is what distractions got in the way? What am I prompting my brain to look for? You ever go to a car dealership and see like a red car that you normally never see, and then you see it everywhere? Your brain, when it sees things, there's pattern recognition that starts to look for it. So what distractions got in the way? Now you're mindful of what you did that you didn't want to do the day before, and ultimately, what will you do differently? Now, what happens throughout the day, the more and more you do this, this is how you continue to grow, because your brain will start looking for the distractions. It'll be triggered when the distraction goes off. You're like, wait, I should be doing this differently. And in doing this with clients, I have not seen in less than 3 weeks anyone be able to break a bad habit, because now your brain is being trained to look for these things and improve. So it's make money, look for improvements, improve. Make money, look for things to improve. And this is just a cycle. Now, if you think about the compound effect of things, imagine you did this every single day for an entire year, how different your life would be. And my suggestion is to don't skip the weekends. Do not skip the weekends, right? If you have kids, right, I would write this and just change the weekend version to like, you know, what activities was I present for today? Or what memories did I proactively go to build, right? I would write that. What distractions got in the way, and what will I do next time? For a lot of us that are parents here, like it's our cell phone, it's work, they're distractions, right? Like, look, your goal of a business is to earn money, right? Like I know my man Ed could relate to that, right? So, you know, you have to go here and you have to do things that earn money. If not, you're just busy, right? And busy doesn't equal productive. And hours does not equal output. I'm going to say that again. Busy does not equal productive, and hours does not equal output. I tell people all the time, it's about output. It doesn't matter how many hours you work. If you could output what somebody does in 14 hours in 6, then good for you. So we have to stop using time as a measurement of success. It's about output, right? So that's the 10-minute business plan. Now let's start getting into time blocking, right? So look, time blocking is the key to executing your plan. If I look at your plan and you want to do 100 million in sales, great. Where are the sales coming from? Great. Now, how is that broken down into your calendar, into purposeful actions, daily, weekly, monthly, and over the course of a year? So by the show of hands, whose business plan here is accurately reflected in their schedule? I'm looking around the screens now. One person. All right, great. We have massive room for improvement. So now I want you guys all to go back to your plans. And look, this should be a really if I were you sitting in this moment, how I want you to feel right now is really excited and inspired, because you've made it this far and you don't even know any of this stuff. So all of this is just massive opportunity for growth. And I want you to look at how far you've come as a barometer of how much further you can go. Right. So now when you go back and you look at your plans, you can effectively understand where you need to improve, how you need to time block, or some of these things that people say in their plan are crazy, right? We do like these VIP strategy days, and I look at what people tell me that they want to do in a day. And I'm like, if you're thinking about all these different things, then nothing is going to work because you're just doing a little bit of everything, right? The goal of any system in a business is to create the system, implement the system, measure what matters, make the necessary adjustments, automate it, and then move on. That's what our focus really needs to be. So let's go into what we believe are the most effective time blocks. Number one, it's a 10-minute business plan. It's 7 days a week, 10 minutes a day, no big deal. Prospecting, we call it the 5-3-2, right? Contact 5 people in your sphere or past clients, 3 compass agents, and 2 handwritten notes. It is literally, if I had to get back into real estate, it's the only thing I do, and then I go play golf all day. Because that work would create other work. Now, think about how these numbers work for you. We talked about compounding, right? If you call 5 people a day, and anyone that's been here for a while has heard me say this a million times, and it works. 5 people a day, 25 people a week, 100 people a month, 10 months out of the year, that's 1,000 people. A 1% conversion rate, which is low, it's low like, what's the word? Geographic farming, that's 10 deals. 3 compass agents a day, 15 a week, 60 a month, 10 months, 600, 1%. That's another 6 deals. 2 handwritten notes a day, that's 10 a month, 10 a week, 40 a month, 400 a year, 1% conversion rate. There's 20 transactions there in doing that. If you do it 5 times a week, 10 months out of the year. Does that sound like a lot of work? No. You're like talking to people you know. Throw in client coffees, 4 client events, and you're literally going to make whatever you want to make in 20 transactions by talking to people and doing fun things with people that you know, like, and already trust you. When we get into the data sheet next week with Kate, you'll see why this is so important when you understand that most people here, 80 to 90% of their business comes from people they know. But 80 to 90% of their time are nowhere near their budget or anything's even spent on these people. Now, the next time block. So we say that's 5 times a week for an hour, and all this is in your action steps. Now, live coaching, we want you to block the time off 2 times a week. I see we have, a lot more people have turned their camera on. We still have half of you that have not. So make sure you show up prepared, ready to meet people. Update your Zoom to have your name and your geographic area, because networking is a big part of this, right? I got a message from Wendy Moore, who's out in California, and she's at a ninja thing in Texas. And she's like, so many people know who I am from the group Zoom calls, because Wendy is a West Coast person that comes to the 9:30 session, right? So she's here early. Her thing says, I believe, Santa Monica. And that way people are like, oh, it's Wendy from California. She wakes up early. And this is how people get to know you, right? So that's coaching. Now, with coaching comes coaching implementation. We suggest that you put 2 30-minute time blocks or one 1-hour time block to actually implement what you learned in coaching. Because if you're not blocking time for any training session you go, then what are you really doing? You're going and signing up for the gym thinking you're going to get the results by maybe working out, but not dieting, right? Like you can work out, like this is working out, but if you don't diet healthy, you're not going to get the results. So like, think about like implementation is like healthy dieting. Now, the next one is role playing. Now, look, I don't think anyone thinks this is fun. If I look around, there are like a few hardcore salespeople that I know here. But here's the reality. No matter how many leads you generate, no matter what it is you do, if you don't know how to effectively communicate and talk to people, you're not going to make the money you deserve. And if you don't practice, how are you ever going to get good at it? When we do sales training, I'll sit here and I'll hold the stopwatch for 30 seconds. It feels like an eternity. Do you know how long some of these, what I call realtor run-on sentences are? Dude, people are overwhelmed. So the goal is, let's look at our plan, and then let's understand what core skills are associated with those goals and try to master one skill a quarter. We suggest 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week. Now think about this. Imagine if you could go back 10 years in your career and you practice every common objection you have. I have a friend in the business. Tom said he'd do it for 1% less, right? I'm thinking of waiting. What do you do differently than other agents? Like all these different things that you talk about every day, the basic skills of like, how do you share the market with somebody where you're not lecturing them and over talking their ear, where they have space to talk about their own goals. These are all core skills that people are just not taught. And as an industry, real estate does a terrible job from the beginning of saying, hey guys, this is a sales business. You need to actually talk to people. So let's teach you the skills of persuasion, influence, active listening, question asking, meeting people where they are, right? Understanding their iceberg and like what they're communicating to you outwardly and what's underneath that. Like they don't talk about those things. This is where all the money is. And by the way, for the newer agents, if I was a new agent, I'd be diving into this so hard because guess what? Trust is a feeling that's created by interactions, engagement. So if you're asking the right questions, meeting someone where it is, clearly articulating your value proposition, the people are going to have a feeling of confidence with you that they're not with even somebody that sold 100 more homes than you are. And the last time I checked, people in real estate that buy and sell homes make decisions on feelings. The majority of them, minus like those introverted investors, where if you're like a feelings-based like person selling families and homes in a dream, you're not going to like those investors. And even investors like people that are matter of fact and to the point. So let's go through this in a quick recap, and then we're going to take out our implementation thing. The key to any of this is understanding how to prioritize your tasks. And the goal of that is to understand what is distracting you so you can create a system. Now, by creating the system, you're going to do this through the 10-minute business plan. You'll understand that your job as a salesperson for yourself, your family, and the people that depend on you is to create new income. At the end of every day, you're going to want to know what distractions got in the way, what will you change differently, and you'll track this 7 days a week and become obsessed with doing it. If there's one thing that you would do out of this entire session that will change your entire life, it's that. And the third one is make sure you review it in the morning before you start your day, so your brain is programmed to look for it. And the third part is figuring out what time blocks are important to you. Role playing, implementing coaching, live coaching, the 5-3-2, and the 10-minute business plan. You can do all of it or you could do none of it. So now let's all take a moment and take out your CSC implementation worksheet. And I'm going to walk you through how to do it. All right, the first step in this, right, is, the session title's all done. What is your key takeaway, right? What is your key takeaway? Meaning what your takeaway is you're going to literally want to fill in here what you plan on doing, right? And remember, when you're writing your takeaway, you're writing it as if You're going to look at it a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. You'll know exactly what to do. So take a moment and write in your key takeaway. Now, the next part in this is priority. What kind of priority is this for you? Is it something you want to do this week? I would suggest this is high and doing it in your coaching time block. Is it something you want to do the next 30 to 60 days, or it's something you want to punt down the road? And I would suggest this has to be in here somewhere for you. So put the drop down and pick the priority. All right, now here's the most important part. Everyone in the next 2 minutes we have, go in their calendar and time block where they're going to take action where they want. Guys, can you re-enable the chat? And just write ready when it's done. All right, once you put your time block, write the word time in. You're supposed to download the sheet from our customer portal. So if you don't have the sheet, it's attached to yesterday's session. It's all of this is in yesterday's session. And her song, they're saying it's not opening. So look, in the end, don't get stuck on this. Get stuck on just put the time in your calendar, right? You can go back and fill in the sheet. You can look at the recording. It's really important right now while we're here together, and we have 2 minutes, to go in your calendar and time block when you're going to do what you want out of this session. Yes, I can share my screen. So if you look here where it says priority, there should be a drop-down menu, right? Status is if you're working on it. Time blocked is time blocked. Accountability date is when you want to complete it by, and then the actual date completed. It's a very simple system. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to implement the 10-minute business plan. My priority is urgent. I'm going to do this right away. It's a high priority. I'm going to do it this week. Then I'm going to go on my calendar and I'm going to block off 30 minutes tomorrow to just review the plan and everything else. And then I'll set the subsequent time blocks every day to make sure to do it at the end of the day and when to start the day. Those are the specified actions. All right, my team, I'm going to drop off. My team is going to stay on here if anyone has questions about the form and everything else like that. And look, as always, with love in my heart, I love you all. Please, 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 please make sure at the end of these sessions, if you plan on doing this, whether it's today, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you put it in your calendar, because this is how you effectively get the most out of coaching. And look, it's either applicable today, in the future, it's not applicable at all, or it's not applicable now, right? It's something you want to revisit at the end of the quarter. But this, I think this is a must for everybody. There's something here that everyone should do. And if you're not doing the 10-minute business plan every day, you're leaving money on the table because you're not improving and tracking your performance. So is everyone good? All right, good. Our team will stay on here for the sheet and any other questions. And they'll stay on here for a few minutes. As always, again, with love in my heart, I love you all. I hope everyone has a productive day, and you should all be excited. There's massive room for growth. We'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody. I can go ahead and drop some of these links again in the chat, and we'll try to direct you. If you want to drop some of your questions in the chat, or you can always email us directly at csccommunity@chiragshawcoaching.com, which I can put in the chat as well. So really quickly, I'll just show you again these links. This is going to be in the resource library of the platform. The link to the implementation sheet, I'm going to put it in the chat again. So what you want to do is click it, and it should open up the platform, and then you log in, and then you click view, and then it should prompt you to make a copy in Google. I'll share my screen really quickly. Okay. So again, when you paste the link from the chat into your internet browser, it's going to bring up the CSC community platform. So you want to log in. If you're having any issues logging in, again, email us at that csccommunity@chiragshawcoaching.com email address, which I'm going to put in the chat again. So when you pull up this resource library worksheet, you want to click view, and then it should open up a pop-up window, and then you want to make a copy. You might be prompted to log into Google, but to do that, you would just sign in with your Compass email address, your Compass Google login credentials, and then you can make the copy. And this is more important, as something that you can sort of revisit when the call is over. And if you need clarity on how to fill in any of these sections, you should definitely go back and rewatch the recording from this morning, the call that we're on now, or even the calls yesterday, where Chirag again reviewed how to fill this out. I'll do a really quick recap of how to find those past recordings. If you're ever lost in the platform, everything is pretty easily found in this sidebar menu. So if you want to look at the past recordings, you would go into sessions and events, and then past events. And you'll see, for example, yesterday was the 23rd. So this is the 12:30 p.m. Eastern time call. This is the 9:30 a.m. Eastern time call. You click watch, and then there's the video for you to watch. So you can, in tandem, watch this, pull this up on your end, and fill it in based off of, what Chirag is telling you to do in terms of time blocking and setting priorities and that sort of thing. I guess as a handy other way of sharing this implementation sheet with you, because it is really important that you have it, I'm also just going to drop a direct link to it via Google, which might be easier for some of you to access. And again, so I just dropped it in the chat. It's that docs.google.com spreadsheets link. Just bookmark this and favorite it. If you don't really like going necessarily in the resource library right now, because it's all sort of new, just bookmark this sheet, because we're probably going to be using it like every single day, with Chirag after each of his calls. So it's really important that you have it. I'll drop it one more time in the chat. And again, you click it, you open it, it should prompt you to make a copy for yourself. And then you can, work from this every day. And if you find that you really like it, you can also make subsequent copies to use in some of the expert mentor sessions, but that's totally up to you. To do that, I'll show you one last time. To do that, you would say, file, and then make a copy. And then let's say you want to type it, expert mentor, David Severance, and then you make a copy. And then you can use this as an implementation tracker specifically for those sessions with David, if that's something you would be interested in doing, or whichever expert mentor it might be. But for right now, I wouldn't stress too much about that. I would stick to using just this single copy for the Monday and Tuesday calls with Chirag. So I'm going to drop it in one last time. And then if there are any more questions, again, you can email us directly at csccommunity@chiragshawcoaching.com, and we'll get back to you. Our goal is within one business day. So we're going to be reviewing all this again at 12:30 this afternoon. If you want to join that call, please feel free. And we'll do some more troubleshooting if necessary. So I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you this afternoon. Bye.